Welcome to Weekdays Live. This is CJ Holmes, founder of Homeowners for Justice and your host for today. And I'm telling you, we've got some kind of a deal today. There's so much news. And you know, when I first started this, I thought, every day, how can we do that? It's pretty easy. There's just something going on every day. And this is truly a newsworthy day. You're going to hear about Fannie and Freddie. You're going to hear a media report. We've got mainstream media reporting on the fraud. We've got to listen to this, and we've got to shove this connection, this link to every media station that we are familiar with all over the country. The one we're going to watch today happens to be in Georgia, but this is something we could do as activists. We could take that link. I'm going to have it on the comment section right after the show, you know that, and we can forward that to all the media stations in our area. Let's get them doing reports like this in Georgia. So that's really exciting to me. And then thank you, Renee. Look, everybody is sending me links. I do appreciate it. It's just taken an enormous amount of time to listen to all of them and watch them and look at them. And some I use and some I don't. But I do appreciate that research effort. I really do. And I just got it this morning, just 5 minutes ago. We had to change the overheads, everything, because Wells Fargo, the judge, has upheld the sanctions, $3 million on one mortgage. This is a win for the homeowners. And then we've got a homeowner from Maryland sharing with us. She's won. She's got her house. And exactly what she did. And of course, it's a little bit different in Maryland. All the states are different. So if you're in Maryland or know anybody in Maryland, come on, learn how to do that. Listen up, share the link with people. But the fact is, these kinds of tactics can help spur everyone else in other states to figure out how they can do that for themselves in our state. And then Ronald's going to come back on the show and share with us the Department of Justice complaints he's filed. Look, it's everything we do, pushing. It feels like rolling a ball uphill, but we're going to get there. Let's listen now to Fannie and Freddie and how that looks.
Report its first profit in 6 years.
We know that at least at some point this week. We don't know, Betty, how big that number will be. You will recall the company delayed its fourth quarter and annual earnings report last month so that executives at Fannie could negotiate with their regulator over how to treat nearly $62 billion in deferred tax assets. This $62 billion with a B, that's money that could go directly back to taxpayers, to the Treasury Department under the terms of Fannie's bailout. Now, even if you remove those tax credits, Fannie says it expects to report significant net income for the quarter and for the year, and that would mark a stunning turnaround for the government-sponsored enterprise forced into conservatorship back in 2008 alongside its smaller sibling, Freddie Mac. It's going to add new fuel as well to the debate over what to do with the GSEs. Combined, you'll recall they needed $188 billion in taxpayer cash to survive. To date, they have paid dividends of $58 billion back to the government, leaving Fannie $88 billion and Freddie $42 billion in the hole on paper at least. They've rebounded with the overall housing market improvement. Freddie Mac reported earnings of $11 billion last year compared to a loss of $5.3 billion in 2011. Through the first 3 quarters of 2012, Fannie reported earnings of $9.6 billion. It lost $16.9 billion in 2011. Nobody expected them to return to profitability so quickly, and despite all the anger over the bailouts, there's been no real effort to wind them down or reform the nation's housing finance market. Instead, their footprints have only grown. They're basically backstopping 90% of the mortgages issued in the U.S. right now. Lawmakers like Virginia Senator Mark Warner want to make sure profits don't slow the reform push.
Good news is they're actually starting to make money again. Bad news is if they make too much money, there may be a sense of, oh, well, let's not mess with them anymore. We need to change the current housing finance system.
I spoke to Senator Warner before the Senate recess. Now, the report could come any day this week, Betty, and again, profitability here could pose problems. The bigger the number, the faster Fannie could speed up its own demise.
So, Peter, does that mean that we could see action this year in Congress, or could that be slowed down?
Well, Betty, it's crystal clear if you watch anyone up on Capitol Hill. There was a hearing before the recess that clearly showed that there are big disagreements over exactly what to do with Fannie and Freddie, but no question about it, a big number from Fannie will at least speed up the conversation and the debate and may put more pressure on the administration to put out their ideas.
Okay, a couple of points I wanted to make sure that you got. One is they're surprised at the money that they're making. And I swear that's basically due to the manipulation of market prices, which we've already talked about a bit. The other thing is that, and in this article I'm going to put on the screen right now, it talks about the profits. This is the report that the previous video was mentioning. They didn't have these numbers at the time they took that video. Now they've come out with 17.2 billion profits, and one of the key issues I wanted to point out down in the article is that the problem is Fannie, Freddie, FHA. They are actually backing 90% of the new mortgages. And the problem is that they're the only game in town. And that is a very scary situation when you have just the government guaranteeing, they're the only ones buying these mortgages and guaranteeing them. And as a real estate broker, I'm telling you, it used to be just a few years before the foreclosure crisis, before these toxic loans blew up, it was a U shape. You know, most people had conventional lending. Very few people had FHA. Others had seller financing. Now it's completely upside down. There's very little conventional, relatively speaking, very little other seller financing. Everybody's upside down. And there's so much of a hump of FHA loans and Fannie and Freddie buying these loans. And I agree with them. I totally agree that we have to shift financing for real estate. And frankly, my personal opinion is get out of securitization. Just get out of it. I'm much leaning more towards a local public bank connecting with local regional banks and credit unions to provide reasonable financing, always fixed, always 30 years, low interest rates, because the public credit then could be used for the public good. So just wanted to insert that there. These are long-term issues that as we march through the foreclosure crisis, as we get wins, as we stop foreclosures, as we keep people in their homes, now we're going to have to figure out how we're going to refinance, shift financing, particularly for home purchases, so that this doesn't happen again. And right now, when Fannie and Freddie are buying these things, they're securitizing them. That is the point. They're securitizing them. So we're not out of the securitization nightmare. And it's not just securitization that made this a nightmare. Please understand, we often think of securitization and the foreclosure crisis as connected. And yes and no. Yes, it's connected, but because they did not securitize properly. They screwed it up and got rid of the paperwork. They didn't actually transfer the ownership of these loans to the trusts. Now, if they had done that, they wouldn't be screwed up. So anyway, that's for another discussion. But I just wanted to put this information, these ideas into your heads while we're talking about it. Okay, this is the link I've been talking about. Oh my goodness, this is Eye on Atlanta. This is a major mainstream media. This is all about fraud and the fact that these homeowners have been cheated out of their homes. This is the link I think we should be sharing.
Georgia has the highest foreclosure rate in the country. 1 in every 300 homes is facing foreclosure, double the national average. That hurts our property values, destabilizes neighborhoods, and leaves our schools and governments slashing services and staff. But our investigation finds many of those foreclosures didn't have to happen. They were actually done illegally. Courts know about the problem, so does law enforcement. But no one has been held criminally responsible. Tonight, we ask tough questions about what some call the largest fraud ever perpetrated on Americans.
When I look at this, it's organized crime.
Patrick Powell never expected simply applying for a loan modification on his Forsyth County home would turn him into a victim of massive foreclosure fraud.
It makes normal, like the mafia's organized crime, look like 5th grade math. 3, 4.
The musician and sound designer says a bank illegally tried to foreclose on his house. It happened after his servicer told him not to pay his mortgage while it worked out an adjustment. Then they lost his 60-page modification application. Not once, not twice. How many times?
I would say total probably about 6. When I called in to find out where the negotiator was and how come I hadn't heard from them, they were like, what modification, what package are you talking about? We don't have any paperwork on you.
Down on their luck homeowners tell similar stories at this convention center event in Atlanta this spring. Thousands line up, some camp out, hoping counselors with the nonprofit Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America can do what they couldn't do alone.
I've been working with Bank of America probably for over a year trying to get my mortgage refinanced.
Ultimately, some will get lower payments, others will lose their homes, which will be auctioned off on courthouse steps. That was about to happen to Powell when he saw a 60 Minutes report in 2011 that blew the lid off the industry's dirty secret.
None of the major banks were willing to sit down with us and talk to us about this.
It revealed banks used phony documents to push people out of their homes. It turns out when Wall Street bundled mortgages into trusts and sold them to investors, they lost important documents related to the loans. So when banks needed those missing papers to foreclose on homes, attorneys and foreclosure firms just made them up, forging signatures of bank vice presidents and notaries on documents called assignment of mortgage, which transfers ownership. 60 Minutes exposed one prolific robo-signer named Linda Green.
On thousands of other mortgages, the style of Green's signature changed a lot.
I saw that and I was like, Linda Green. I'm like, let me go see. And I pulled out my assignment and I was like, oh my God, it's Linda Green.
So you thought you had an open and shut case at that point?
I did, yeah. This is the transcript of the judge.
According to the hearing transcript, the judge chided Powell as he tried to explain the complex fraud.
He cuts me off. Let me tell you how I'm kind of from the country. I understand plain English a lot better than I understand flowery language.
And why do you think he cut you off? He doesn't understand?
I think there was an agenda of knowing going in what was going to happen, and he just wanted to get it done with, you know.
In Georgia, they've largely ignored the problem and rubber-stamped anything that the banks want.
Paula Rush, an auditor and expert in the field, spoke to us over Skype from her home in Florida. She says banks are using the phony documents to orchestrate a much more sinister fraud. She says the servicer never intended to modify Powell's mortgage and just dragged him along. The reason? Rush says investors who bought the trust that included Powell's mortgage also bought insurance that pays out if the loans default.
Well, what I see over and over again in the monthly investor reports is that the loan trust that have a lot of insurances on them, there's no loan modifications being done. In the loan trust that have no insurances left in them, whether they're exhausted or they weren't there to begin with, they're doing lots of loan modifications. They're lying to the homeowner that they even stand a chance at getting a loan modification.
It's a racket. It all boils down to money.
Ann Batt runs Operation Restoration, a grassroots group which helps homeowners fight illegal foreclosure.
People have been blamed for not making their payments, but they are in a vicious cycle.
She says Georgia judges and court clerks who accept the forged papers only perpetuate the problem.
If there was anything proactive on their part, they'd be able to stop a lot of this.
Salem, Massachusetts, the harbor town known for its colonial-era witch hunts, is now getting a reputation for hunting out foreclosure fraud. The Register of Deeds here in Salem is among the first in the nation to expose the magnitude of the problem. He's now challenging the nation's biggest banks and calling for their executives to be criminally investigated. Talk to me about what you have here.
This is approximately 38,000 documents that have been recorded in this registry that contain fraudulent robo-signed signatures. This is the evidence.
John O'Brien's registry holds deeds dating back to land deals with the Indians in the 1600s. He says those are more accurate than many of the documents banks send today. An outside auditor revealed only 16% of the assignments in his registry are legitimate.
Totally fraudulent. The signatures are fraudulent, And the information in some of the documents are fraudulent. And they knew this. The banks knew this. And the attorneys that process these documents know it.
He found many different robo-signers apparently penned the same name. Look at all the different versions of Linda Green and Brian Bly.
I can't look people in the eye any longer and tell them who really owns their mortgage, because their mortgage has been sold so many times.
So who owns your mortgage?
I wish I know the answer.
One of those homeowners is Senka Huskic. She says Bank of America gave her the runaround in modifying her loan, then tried to foreclose using a phony assignment. She fought it and hasn't made a payment on her Peabody, Massachusetts home in nearly 2 years. Why do you think the bank hasn't come after you and foreclosed on your property?
I think they're not coming after me because they know that I am ready to sue them for wrongful foreclosure.
You see, only the mortgage owner can foreclose, and since the bank made such a mess of the paperwork and the mortgage has been resold so many times, no one has been able to prove who owns her note. People are going to say maybe you're part of the problem by not paying your mortgage, and whatever happens, you deserve.
Okay, but I will ask all of these who will say that, like, if I show to you that your bank is fraudulently taking your payments because they don't own your mortgage, would you still continue to pay? For me, you are a fool if you do that.
3, 4.
O'Brien says his office no longer accepts assignments completed by known robo-signers. His staff returns them to the bank with an affidavit asking bank officials to swear to their authenticity. He says no bank has ever done so. You are the David going after the Goliath.
Well, perhaps I am, but what I am is somebody who's elected doing his job, and I suspect that the taxpayers in your state want your registers of deeds to do the same thing. It's very simple.
But we found Georgia officials aren't as willing to crack down on the fraud.
Mr. O'Brien's a smart man.
Kathleen Robinson is Fulton County's clerk of Superior Court, Georgia's version of the Register of Deeds. She says it's not her responsibility to make sure the documents are authentic. Her job is just to file them. How big of a problem would it be for your staff to start looking at the signatures and comparing them to lists of known robo-signers?
It would be a major. We have been cut. Our budget has been cut. We're working on limited staff.
In February, the nation's 5 largest banks reached a $25 billion settlement with the feds and 49 states. The banks include Wells Fargo, Bank of America, GMAC Ally Bank, Citi, and Chase. But it appears banks are still filing fraudulent assignments.
This came in. Not only was it signed by Brian Bly as vice president of Citi Financial Mortgage Company.
The Register of Deeds in Massachusetts showed us one he received this summer.
I truly, truly believe this. They know exactly what they did. They sit there and say, we're too big to fail. Well, they're not too big to go to jail.
You're placing everything on the criminal side. The civil side has recourse.
Georgia Attorney General Sam Olens signed the major settlement that netted Georgia $100 million. He also pushed through a new law that gives him and county district attorneys power to criminally prosecute foreclosure fraud.
We fully expect that this new legislation, which just became effective in July, will have that same effect, that we'll see a significant reduction, we meaning both the district attorneys and us, because as those individuals understand they can be prosecuted, they're going to follow the law.
Olin says the law only allows him to prosecute crimes that happened after July 1st of this year. Some argue he could do more.
If we get an investigation that shows fraud June 1, the law wasn't in effect and we can't prosecute.
But it's always been illegal to submit false documents.
True.
But isn't that what the banks did?
Look, it's much more complicated than that. When you're dealing with the foreclosure process, most of the time the documents weren't being changed in the state.
Patrick Powell's assignment was signed in Georgia, along with untold thousands of others, likely inside this office in Alpharetta.
I would love to see them go to jail.
He's now suing American Mortgage Services and Deutsche Bank, if for nothing else, he says, to hold them accountable, since police and prosecutors haven't.
Let's figure this out in court. I don't want to hear your servicer, your negotiator. I want a court of law to tell me that this is right, and then I'll do whatever they ask me to do.
Classic, isn't it? Isn't it classic? Let's find an excuse. Oh, they didn't sign it in this state. And that is part of the problem. This fraud should have been started at the Department of Justice. These are federal banks. These are nationwide banks. It should be Eric Holder and that department, the Attorney General of the United States, to prosecute. And they've been refusing to do it. So when they won't do it, then who's going to? And literally everyone down the line is going to come up with their excuses. Now, what we can do, just like these homeowners are doing, those that do have assignments, for example, signed in that state, can go after, go do a lawsuit. And this is what we're trying to figure out, is how can we put these things together so that the majority of owners have some leg to stand on, some way to get justice and restitution for themselves. Now, I wanted to share a couple more things real quick, and then we're going to have Amy come on and tell us how she skipped her home from the bank. This is breaking news. This is the Wells Fargo $3 million punitive damages. Here's the article about it. The award is upheld, and here is the explanation of it for us on video.
You're watching the Bloomberg Law Bankruptcy Review. I'm Lee Pacquiao, joined now as always by Bloomberg News bankruptcy columnist Bill Rochelle. Be sure to check out his daily bankruptcy column available on BloombergLaw.com and also on the Bloomberg Terminal. Bill, something really interesting today. I want to pick up on a story that appeared in your column, I believe, yesterday. Homeowners win punitive damage award over Wells Fargo overcharges. This is one whammy of a punitive damages award, $3.2 million relating to one single mortgage and malfeasance. Take it away. What do we have here?
Well, what do we have? We have one very angry bankruptcy judge, the chief bankruptcy judge in New Orleans by the name of Elizabeth Magner. Here's the situation. There was a homeowner who, after years of litigating in the bankruptcy court, was finally able to establish that they had been overcharged by the bank $24,000 on their home mortgage. And they contended that this was a violation of their bankruptcy plan and a lot of other stuff.
So we're talking ultimately about $24,000 in overcharges that ended up in a punitive damages award of $3.2 million.
Exactly right.
That is a very angry bankruptcy judge.
Exactly
Why
right.
is she so angry?
Well, now here's the story. The judge said in her opinion that the mortgage provided that first payments would be applied to interest, then to principal, and last to any other charges that the bank might be claiming. The judge learned only after some years of litigation that in fact the bank had a proprietary software system that applied payments not that way, but rather first to fees they were claiming, then to principal and interest. And the result of that would be there would be unpaid principal and interest, and therefore the amount of the loan would get larger than otherwise it should have been. Further, the judge seemed to have been annoyed because they had great difficulty in extracting this information from the bank. So at the end of the day, the judge saw that she was in a, shall we say, a limited position because the circuit court had told her already that she couldn't remedy this situation by telling the bank to clean up its act with respect to other borrowers. That was simply beyond her power to act in one particular case. The door was left open, however, to impose sanctions. This case really demonstrates how persistent an individual has to be able to get things right with a lender.
Bill, didn't the attorneys for the homeowner in this case do this pro bono?
Well, essentially they did, and this is what's really quite remarkable about it. Based upon what the judge said in her opinion, the lawyers for this homeowner must have spent more than $300,000 in time charges, I presume without being paid. It means, in essence, that these lawyers had to work for free for maybe 5 years or so to establish that the bank was not following procedures correctly. And that's what set the bankruptcy judge off. What she did at the end of the day was to say that given, let's call it $3.2 no, $310,000 in attorney's fees it took to prove the homeowner was overcharged. She assessed punitive damages 10 times that amount, or in other words, the approximately $3.1 or $3.2 million. The bank, of course, has told me that they have long since remedied whatever problems there were in their servicing system, and they also believe that the bankruptcy judge made some mistakes in fact as well as in law. So I rather suspect that we're going to see an appeal here, and if we do, we can report later on what the appellate courts do with it. But, you know, for me, Lee, what this tells us is that we had a serious endemic problem going to the core of the home ownership, home loan business going back many years. And sadly, now that, you know, the explosion is years over, we're only now beginning to see how truly severe and thoroughgoing this problem was. And I'm not pointing simply a finger at this one bank, because we've by now heard enough stories about robo-signing and all sorts of other activities where lenders are either completely overwhelmed by the paperwork, or they simply just say, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. We'll say or do whatever we have to get the properties back. In any event, Lee, it strikes me that this is an area that needs more rather than less regulatory supervision if we're to avoid a recapitulation of these problems from 2006, 2007.
Yeah, this certainly bears watching. That is an awfully big award. Bill, thanks for that.
I love it. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. That is what they're doing, and that is why it's so important. I'm trying to get Jed on the show on Friday. He's been sending out his suspicious documents. It is so important that each one of us actually keep this momentum and send to these people. Send it to Bloomberg Law. Let's send it to Eye on Atlanta. All of the suspicious documents on our properties. The fact is, those 18 properties that I submitted to the Attorney General after I looked at all those those are all current foreclosures. Most of them have not yet been taken back. They're just forged and fake documents that are sitting on these properties right now. And of course, the owners are trying to stave off foreclosure, doing whatever they can to keep the house and try to get the loan mod, try to get a bank to work with them. I thought it was very fascinating that they talked about the loans that were insured in a trust that had insurance, either still available or had it in the first place. Those loan mods are pretty much never going to happen. Where others, when it comes down to it, when they can't get any money from someplace else, then they're going to start talking with the homeowner. It figures. It's all about the money. Wow. So with that, I'd like to welcome Amy on the show, if we can get her on the show. Hey, let's get Amy on the show. This is a homeowner in Maryland that has actually been able to keep her house. She sent me a whole bunch of documents. And so what I'd like is to have her start to share with us the issues that specifically take effect in Maryland and why she's been able to use these this information for her own saving her own house. So I think she's on line one. Amy, is that you?
Yes.
Oh, thank you for joining the show. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. We know that you're a homeowner in Maryland that has evidently been able to keep your house. So if you can just summarize your situation, and then we'll go through the documents and what you used, how you did this.
Okay. I knew once I got the statement of debt from the foreclosure case that it was incorrect according to my accounting.
Okay, now Amy, just
and that's where I started, and I used an OCC complaint and other different free avenues of getting information.
Okay, Amy, just a minute. Tell people what an accounting, what the statement of account or the accountment of debt, whatever you called that. What was that you said?
Okay, statement of debt.
Statement of debt. Okay, what is that?
That's filed with the foreclosure complaint.
Okay.
It says the past due balance, the corporate advances, the prepayment penalties, everything they're foreclosing on you for, and the amount of money they're going after in the court.
Okay. All right. So this was included in the foreclosure documents that you were given, you were sent?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So once you got that statement of debt, then you said you filed some complaints, like with OCC, to get some information. So continue. Tell us what you asked for.
Well, at that time, I was naive, and I knew the accounting. I'm a numbers person, and the numbers didn't add up to what I knew our account to be. So I asked the OCC about some of my origination documents and the fact that the accounting was wrong, and just different things that I could tie an actual piece of paper that I had to information that was incorrect within the court and what Wells Fargo was presenting as the servicer. And through the OCC complaint, I got different information from Wells Fargo. I got the loan activity statements. I got their explanations of what was going on.
Okay, now just a minute, Amy. Tell me what you want me to show as you're talking. Should I pull up the January 2007? Let's start with that.
Well, what I did was now.
Okay.
I know what I should have done from the beginning.
Okay.
That January 2007 would be an example. I spent a day and just organized absolutely every piece of paper that I had by date.
Okay, so what this is a calendar starting in 07, and I can see, I don't know if the folks can read it on live stream, but on the 4th of January 2007, you've written down both some numbers plus things that were filed and different actions. And so you've done this on a calendar for yourself,
yes.
Right?
Because it makes it easier to keep it together.
Right.
And you can present it to an attorney. This is the documentation that I have, and these are the sources that it came from. The red is one document, whether it's a court document or it came from the foreclosing attorney. Then you can start seeing the pattern.
Right. That's a very good idea.
And I did that. Once I got that down, then I went back and I did from the very beginning. I mean, I did it from when I closed the loan and every document I had back then, too.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So I did it from 2006 to present day.
When you signed, what documents you received, and so you would write down your payment statements, that information too.
Yes.
All right. So should I show the account activity statement?
It to me is in 2007 we were in foreclosure.
Right.
And that was when we were on a modification plan, and they still kept moving forward. And I didn't understand once we became current why my bill was reflecting a totally different amount than zero. And here they were hiding the fact that $8,000 in attorney's fees for the 2007 foreclosure were attached to my account.
So now,
I didn't know that until I got account activity statement.
Okay, so I have that up on the screen, and this is from Wells Fargo. This is a customer account activity statement. Did you get this directly from Wells, or did you have to go to the OCC to get this?
It came from my complaint with the OCC. I sent a copy of every letter between myself and Wells Fargo, and when you write a letter requesting they have 30 days to give you information and respond to your complaint.
Right.
If you see on that one, there are two, it looks like there's two documents.
Yes.
That's because if you zoom in close, you will see that the first time they sent it to me was version 3, and the next time they sent it to me was version 4. And they reflect different amounts at different dates.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So the top one, while it stops at 3108,
Yeah.
the next one goes to 4108, there's more 4108
And
version 2.
Oh my goodness. So you got different versions from different times.
Yes.
Well, this just ties in with what Linda said a couple days ago. They keep different sets of books, and try keeping it straight when you're lying on half of what you print out.
And the biggest thing when I filed the OCC complaint, when I kept following up the paperwork, was, you keep talking about corporate advances. Tell me what they are and who you paid. What are they?
Right.
I was able to note them on my account activity statement as well. And I found out that 3 of the charges of corporate advances were for new title policies.
New title policies?
Issued during foreclosure, yes.
Well, did they say why they did that?
No, and that's the only thing they did denote what the charges were for, but they have yet to give me a receipt as to who was paid that money.
So if we were cynically, we would say that's just a payment. That's a payoff to it's another way to extract a made-up fee out and burden the foreclosure with it, so that they can get more money out of it when they foreclose.
Or additional title policies issued, further encumbering the property.
That's amazing. Oh, you've done a fabulous job here documenting this. This is a ton of work. This is, and others that I have talked to that have taken on that job of fighting back for their own foreclosures to try to keep the home. They talk about it being almost a full-time job.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so shall we go to the address blowout example?
Okay, yeah.
All right.
That one's not mine.
Okay.
But it's one that I was working with. What I started to do is I started seeing a pattern with the things I was researching online. And I said, what if I took the documents from origination, all the deed of trust that I have, and find out addresses and names and phone numbers?
Right.
Because, wow, when this one points to so-and-so and this one points to so-and-so, I started noticing a pattern with people that the deed of trust would say one address, especially missing the suite numbers, and the foreclosure documents would say more specific or a different address as to who the deed of trust was with. It was the same party, but a different address, and that's significant.
That is. And so did you discover anything about that?
That almost all the time you can point to it going to a securities broker.
Really?
Yes. My title agent had put a 866 number that was not associated with my closing on a document, and it goes to Coldwell Banker. I had nothing to do with Coldwell Banker, except for at the end of my foreclosure, a Coldwell Banker broker agent got a payment from the clerk of court to file with her appeal.
Why would that be?
I haven't quite figured out the relationship there. I'm kind of at I don't know what to do.
Okay, so this is a fascinating, and this is going to be true. We are going to constantly, as we figure this out more and more, we're going to uncover more and more corruption and fraud, I swear, because it's a complete game. They've structured this pretty cleverly. It's taken the people quite a bit of effort to find out. And as different people discover different facets of it, unless they share these facets with each other, it's not going to come out. That's one of the powers of what we're doing right now is we're talking to somebody in Maryland and I'm in California and people all over the country are listening to this. And this is just truly exciting. I'm confident.
I got
we can
over
get
10,
this.
pardon my French, get the hell out now letters. Because they completely foreclosed on me and got their eviction. And in the end, the real estate broker who sold us back the property for 1 whole year did not serve the eviction. And her answer to the state was, well, they threatened to sue Wells Fargo for fraud. I went back and called Wells Fargo and they said just sit on it and see what she does. So they didn't serve the eviction papers until they were ready for the resale.
Right. In other words, let you stay in the house. We don't really care about that until we want to sell it. And that's why people are saying, literally when they're shoved out of the house is listed and sold. That's really fascinating.
But if you look in the land records, my biggest thing was we were still the owners. They didn't file the substitute trustee's deed. And this is a pattern that I was seeing all over our state. They were keeping you on as the owner. So you're responsible if somebody gets hurt on that property. You're responsible for the taxes.
Right.
Nothing is on them until they file that substitute trustee's deed. Really? And when people just walk away, there's nothing, you don't know that this is going on. You just assume that they filed the correct paperwork in the land records, and they usually don't.
Exactly. And Amy, I had an article on a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago now, which it still reminds me of. I think they called them, limbo land foreclosures. These people have been told they were being foreclosed, so they moved out of the property. And this is years later, they're discovering that the paperwork, the banks never finalized the foreclosures. And so now these people are still on title. Their houses have been destroyed, vandals, and now the cities are trying to put them on the hook for cleanup. And if they had known,
they're the owner of record.
I know, and if they had known, they would never have moved out. They just kept living there. But and this is, of course,
fascinates me about these foreclosure settlement things, that we were completely foreclosed on, and if they had the paperwork to send us the information, if we were like the typical foreclosure and left, we wouldn't be at this address.
That's right.
How many people are due money by these foreclosure settlements that they're sending it to the address they were foreclosed on?
Oh, millions. That's what they're going to do. And you also know that they do this because it doesn't matter. They don't care. And as little money as possible that gets out just benefits them. So they send the check. Let's say they decide to send everybody an $800 check. So they send them all out. And if half, 2/3 are never gotten because the address, the forwarding is long past, we're talking years ago, then they get that money back. They don't have to spend it. I mean,
No, actually, that money is supposed to go back to the unclaimed property funds of the state.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, I'm pretty cynical. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, maybe, but who's going to check on it? Who's going to make sure that does? You going to do that? Is our Attorney General going to do that? Okay, so now the court records. Is that the auditor's report to the court?
We were completely foreclosed on. We get a knock at the door in 2011 in April, and it's the sheriff.
Okay.
He won't give us the copy of the paperwork he's got. He gives us a little sticky note that has a move-out date on it and a contact at the foreclosure attorney. If we have a problem, we're supposed to call him. And my husband says that's not a good time for us. We have to move the date to this date. So he crosses out the date and puts my husband's date on it. We're freaking out. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to file something to, like maybe a TRO, something like that, to prevent them from kicking us out. And within 2 days, the real estate REO broker comes to the house and says, Wells Fargo's decided to sell you back the property for $10,000. Do you want to do that? Well, hell yeah.
Okay. Let me just rephrase this. So the sheriff came and gave you an eviction sticky note.
Yes.
And wrote the date you wanted on it. And then in just a few days, you got an agent. Was that a Coldwell Banker agent, by the way? Just curious. Do you know?
I'm thinking I can tie her back to Coldwell Banker.
Okay, so an agent shows up at your door and says, Wells wants to sell you the house back for $10,000.
Yes.
Did she have any paperwork?
She emailed me a contract, which, when you look at the quote-unquote contract, it's actually a counter offer.
Okay.
To me, that means somebody made an offer. I'm making a counter offer.
I'd love to see that paperwork, if you can ever find that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so
I can't find my paperwork.
Okay, so but you didn't send it to me yet, right? It's none of these docs that you sent.
No,
okay.
Said that.
All right, so you get a counter offer saying purchase price to be $10,000.
Yes. And when I got the paperwork, because Wells Fargo Bank NA was on it, I had a big problem with that because I knew what the land record said, that HSBC for a trust was in the land records as being the current owner because they did finally file the substitute trustee's deed.
Right.
So I emailed her back and said, that's not the party who owns the property.
Interesting.
They tweaked all further communications about the property using the phrase, quote unquote, owner of record.
Owner of record. And oh my goodness, we have used owner of record now since 2008. That's how all the banks were doing. They would just say owner of record. And now I figured it's just an easy way to fill in the contracts, in bulk. But now that it's so significant to me because when it's owner of record, then that could be anybody. Whatever they say at that time.
Exactly. And now that leads me into the auditor's
report. Is this page 1?
Yes.
Okay, auditor report, page 1. Here we go.
Let me pull it up so we're looking at the same thing.
Okay. This is the auditor's account. And then I've got page 2.
Okay, so if you look at the account, at the very bottom, it says to Wells Fargo Bank, N.A.
Yes, it does. The principal, the interest, late fees, escrow, suspense, corporate advances.
Yes. And if you look up at, I don't know that this one says it, but commission.
I don't see commission on this. Maybe that's on page 2.
Et al. See that et al. Commissions?
Et al. Oh, yes, right here. You're right. Atlantic Bonding Company Bond et al. Commissions.
That's the bonding company that put up the bond for the foreclosure attorney. The et al. Killed me, and the word commissions killed me.
I bet.
Why are they getting a commission on the proceeds of sale? They're the bonding company.
Interesting.
So this was filed after we had settled on the property for $10,000.
After the settlement.
Now, your page 2 is what the auditor told the court. This is his receipts. And he told the court that the money is due Wells Fargo Bank. was not the foreclosing party.
And
for me, in Maryland, the auditor's report is the first step to getting a deficiency judgment. If this auditor's report went through and was not contested, then Wells Fargo Bank would have a court order giving them the deficiency judgment.
And where would that deficiency judgment come from? That money, that would come from you as
Yes.
former owner?
They could sue you for that money.
Right.
And since we had the property, it was an amount that could be attached to the property as a lien.
But they had already sold you the property for 10 grand, right?
Not Wells Fargo.
Oh. Exactly. Yes, Your Honor, I did borrow the money, but
Wells Fargo
not from
sold
that
me
guy.
the property. They weren't the owner of record at that point in time.
Oh, my goodness.
And I put a no deficiency addendum on the contract.
Oh, good for you. So you countered their counter by saying,
Well, it was coming.
okay, first I'm going to pay the right party, and then you're not going to come after me for deficiency.
Yes, and they aren't due the deficiency.
They're not even due the original. So actually, have you actually paid then $10,000 for the home to the correct party, in your opinion?
I have a new deed of trust. We didn't actually have the full 10,000.
Okay, that's fine.
Them in one lump.
That's fine. And so you're making payments on that 10,000 to whom at this time?
That's a whole other story.
No, I mean, did the money go? The payment? I don't care where you got the money from, but which party actually got paid that $10,000?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Where did you send it? To whom did you send it? To Wells Fargo Bank N.A.?
We had a closing, and the settlement agent handled everything. So I don't know who he sent it to.
Oh, geez. Remember what we learned last week? That you can get the wire transfer receipts from escrow. And that will tell you where the money came from and where it went.
Well, I filed a complaint because I couldn't get title insurance. And in Maryland, there's specific laws to where you can get the notary logs. And you can ask for that stuff. And I have not yet been able to get that information from the notary, or he was also an attorney. I thought he was acting as an attorney, but he was actually just a notary settlement agent wearing a different hat.
Yes.
Making you think he's an attorney.
Oh, my goodness.
And then they tried to do the old, I was only acting as a notary, not as a lawyer, so therefore I'm bound by different ethics. No.
Right. Always trying to come up with some lame excuse, I swear. Oh, wow.
So we get the auditor's report, and we file an exception to the auditor's report. Biggest reason being that Wells Fargo was on it, and they were not the party that was foreclosing. So we needed to get to the bottom of this, plus they resold us the property, and we get a hearing.
So when's the hearing?
The hearing was in December 2011.
Oh, golly, that was a while back. So, and you're still in the house or not? Yeah, you should be in the house, right?
Yeah. So that hearing was December 2011. It was postponed until February 2012.
Okay.
We have a hearing. The judge says that the trust foreclosing is due the money.
The trust for, okay.
Now we get to the court orders.
Okay.
The first February 13th order says that HSBC was the purchaser. to the purchaser.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead. HSBC is the purchaser.
The trust was the purchaser, yes.
All right. Wow. So this is still an ongoing saga.
Well, the next February 13th is from the clerk of court, who says that we didn't file any exceptions, and the auditor's report is to be ratified the way it stood, aka Wells Fargo is due the deficiency.
Right.
And then the third court order is that any debt due would be due to HSBC as trustee for Nomura.
Oh boy.
There's 2 different case numbers.
Oh boy.
So now Wells Fargo has a court order that says, hey, we're due the money from the sale. And HSBC also has an order saying, hey, the trust is due money from the sale. Any one of them can be used to be presented to, put up as, hey, you want to buy this debt from me? And you service it?
Oh my goodness. HSB, oh my goodness.
And with the clerk's certificate,
right,
he says no exceptions were filed.
Right.
I've looked at and the judge said, yeah, I looked at it too, the court record, and no exceptions were filed.
Oh my goodness. Right. Oh wow.
The judge look at the court record and say there was no hearings and nothing was filed.
Right. So in other words, yes and no. You've gotten a long ways. You're still in the house. You're still fighting.
Yes.
Wow, Amy. We're gonna have to call a halt to that. We got to hear Ronald and the Department of Justice complaints he's been filing quickly, but this has just been an education and really just a validation of what we saw on video earlier today, and that is that homeowners have to go, they have to move mountains just to get any kind of information, any kind of hearing, and the chances of them losing are enormous. Wins are still occasional, but as they pile up, every win.
I lost. I technically lost.
She lost, but now she still has the house.
Because I brought in the accounting. I put that
exactly
record when my husband filed responses to what was going on in the foreclosure case. I mean, in the state of Maryland, you get 10 days from the time you get that letter and your house is sold.
Oh, geez.
Unless you file something.
10 days.
This, that, and the other thing. So when I knew that we were going to be losing, I started giving my husband the documents.
Right.
And he put them in with his filing saying this is wrong because of this. Because we knew we were going to have to appeal. You put everything in the court because you can't bring up any new information in the appeal.
Right. Wow. Good for you. We just congratulate you on your fight.
You don't have to use the court to get information. You can use, everyone's frustrated with the OCC. Well, their mission statement is different than you would assume it to be, but you can use them as a tool to get information.
Right.
QWR is not necessarily going to get you what you want. And they see so many of the same exact QWRs. You need to be extremely specific to you and what you see in your stuff.
Right. Good advice. Thanks, Amy. We just appreciate you joining us today. And we want to be kept updated on what happens next.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, you bet. Bye now. Boy, what a story. So let's invite Ronald. Thanks for joining us today, Ronald. Tell us.
Well, how are you doing, everybody?
I think we're learning a lot as usual, and I personally am feeling fairly positive with having some actual media exposure that perhaps we can share, to every media station around where we live, wherever you are in the country, to try to get.
So amazed at Amy.
Oh my good. Well, I'm just constantly amazed at everybody that is sharing and fighting, and it's almost it does matter what you do, but lots of people are doing relatively different things. Like, she didn't file a lawsuit, but in her state she understood the process enough to go get information that she needed and to fight back. And that's been working for her. In fact, she's willing to be a connection for people in Maryland. So I already have her email up on the homeowner HOFJ organization page, so you can email her about your situation and look to her for help if you're in Maryland in particular. So, Ronald, tell us what you've been up to. You've been busy.
After watching this, I'm very humbled because here's that poor little girl over there fighting for her life. With no help from anyone, and she's still hanging on there.
Absolutely.
Here we are, supposedly the real estate brokers and the educated people that are supposed to know better, and we haven't done as good of a job as this poor little girl. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and
by herself and done all this all by herself.
And good for her, and she's willing to share this. She's willing to share it. I'm telling you, we've got some real good people in this country. Let's just connect.
We sure do.
Okay.
I think we have to keep this Homeowners for Justice site going stronger and bigger and better every day. That's all. It's getting better and better, CJ.
Oh, thanks.
I sent you like 240 pages.
We're not going to show them all.
Time for that now.
Okay, you've said.
So I guess maybe what we could do is just take a look.
Okay.
At just one page.
Okay, so which page on which?
I know. Let's start with like page 3.
Is it on the first scan or the second scan?
The first scan.
Okay, because I'm going to open that up, and you want page 3.
And then I know you don't have a lot of time, but it's
okay.
the one to trysin at USSS.DHS.gov.
Page 3 happened.
27th.
Let's see. On this.
Page 3.
On the.
2.
Page 2.
On the first scan. Yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Right. This is.
That up on the screen.
Yeah.
There's 2 pages.
Okay.
And that was back in 2011. And, I'm sharing this with everybody out there because there's no time to do this right now. But I'm giving it to you so you can read through it yourself. And a little background is we had run through 2 foreclosure mills and defeated them. And they dismissed their cases. And I wondered why. Now we're on the 3rd one. So I sent this letter to TRISIN, is United States Secret Service, at Department of Homeland Security.gov.
Got it.
I made a complaint back in 2011 that MERS Corporation is nothing other than a servicer, a bill collector, another word for a bill collector. They really didn't understand that. They called me here at the house, and they asked me to explain this to them. And I told them it was nothing but fraud. And we were trying to find out, and they were trying to find out where the fraud lie. In other words, where's the heart of this? Where's the root of all this? Where's it coming from? And this letter just basically explains what the attorney explained on your show yesterday.
Yes.
And he showed the $100,000 bill and the $10,000 bill. Remember?
Yes. And bearer.
That's what this letter explained 2 years ago to the Treasury Department via the United States job. Secret Service is to protect the financial instruments, the negotiable instruments in America, the legitimacy of money,
right?
Bonds, these trusts. Okay, these trusts that we're talking about, the mortgage-backed security trust. If you recall, they were guaranteed guaranteed by the United States Treasury.
Absolutely.
Okay? And that's how they were sold overseas. They were sold to pension funds. They were sold everywhere. But there was the guarantee, the full faith and credit of the United States of America that backed all these trusts. And what I was able to find out is that's where all this tort money went. The Treasury Department, since they guaranteed these trusts and they found out the trusts were, fraudulent, they silently and quietly purchased them with the tort funds,
Yes.
troubled asset relief funds for $857 billion. And they're now still buying them at $85 billion. Why? Because they were legitimate? No, because they were fraudulent.
And Catherine Austin fits herself. I mean, I'm just the voice. I just repeat what I hear.
I know. But I'm saying
Catherine Austin Fitts actually said that one of the reasons that they're paying off these foreign sovereign wealth funds for this fraudulent paper is because they have nuclear weapons. And the thought.
Yeah, and it's bigger than that. They own our real estate.
I know that.
That's what this is. So anyway, on my complaint, and there's a lot of people, we can maybe do this on another show sometime.
Yeah.
Because there's just too much in just a few minutes to go over. But
right.
Given that as the premise, these servicers were actually hired by the Treasury Department. They don't have a bill collection department in the United States Treasury. That's hard to believe. So they hired banks like Wells Fargo and American Home Mortgage Servicing, Inc., and all these companies, to do the collections for them. Do you understand? Because they don't have a department there. They weren't in the bill collecting business.
Right.
Now in it, but they hire these servicers. Now, here's the problem. Amy hit the nail on the head, and that's why I'm humbled. But she said it much better than I. There's two sets of books.
Exactly.
There's a book that goes to the Treasury Department.
Right.
And then there's the book that goes to the homeowner. And the missing numbers, like that $8,000 in attorney's fees, doesn't get to the Treasury.
Right.
They get billed. They get billed additional for that $8,000.
Right.
So they're billing from the servicing end of this angle, both ends of the deal. They found out how to step in the middle. They're collecting. They're supposed to forward those payments to the Treasury. They're not.
Right.
They're taking out their fees on that end.
Right.
But they don't tell them that, and then they charge them again to the homeowner.
And see, that's what pissed that judge off in the...
because this is what I've been saying. I've been yelling, fraud, fraud.
I know you have.
Well, here I'm asking the Treasury Department to look into this. Now, how did I get involved this far? I had a hemp loan placed on an 86-year-old man's home who's a dear friend of mine for 25 years. And I had gotten it through HAMP escalations. I don't know if you folks know that there's an escalations division. It's called HAMP Admin Escalations.gov. And I have an encrypted letter from HAMP that says that the loan is owned by the Treasury via Freddie Mac.
Okay.
Now I have, on the other hand, a letter from Capital One Bank that says that they own the loan.
This sounds like Amy. I've got these banks competing.
Are you with me? I have in writing from both sides of the fence here.
Yep.
So now that's why I'm in federal court pushing the issue. I'm saying we're just a homeowner.
Exactly.
We don't know who owns this, but we have conflicting interest here.
Exactly.
And we're asking the United States Department of Justice to get involved. And that's what those letters were to the United States Department of Justice, with 387 pages attached, showing the letters clearly from the bank and their prior two court cases, saying that they were the owners, not just the servicers, but the owners of the note. And then I have a letter encrypted, because they don't send them out in the mail, they encrypt them. And it was encrypted to my account with HAMP that said, because I have multiple, that says this is a Treasury-owned loan. So I'm saying, in the middle, you guys figure it out. But in the meantime, we're going to defeat this third foreclosure.
Right.
Right. I guess that's enough. information right now. But if you look further at what I sent you, you'll see the third foreclosure attempt from a foreclosure mill. And they sent the foreclosure notice as though there had never been any other foreclosure that had ever taken place. They're starting fresh, brand new, because you know what? The servicer never told them.
Well, and see,
these foreclosure mills get $1,000, $1,500,
exactly.
and they just do the paperwork.
It's a
well, this
mill.
guy is
That's right.
surprised because we're asking for criminal charges against the attorney for filing fraudulent documents in the court. That's where we are today, and that just went out maybe 2 weeks ago. So, like I said, this is a little bit involved. Take a look at it. Anyone that wants to comment, you're welcome to comment.
Yes. Before we go, Ronald, I've opened up your second scan and I've seen the complaints that you filed in Pennsylvania. Can you just brief us on that?
Well, okay. The part one was the initial paperwork where we sat down and analyzed this third complaint, attempt to foreclose. And it was handwritten on the side, every line. There were 25 errors in 4 pages.
I'm sorry.
This is from a foreclosure bill.
I'm sorry. This is just
it. By an attorney.
Yep.
This is to practice law. Tells me he never read.
No.
Complaint.
No. And see, listen, everybody listen. This is the natural and logical consequence of people that don't know and don't care of what they're doing. And it just spews out of these companies. And unless you understand what you're seeing or fight back, you lose because it's presumed to be accurate. And this is, this is
the whole thing that drives me wild.
Me too.
Because it's signed by an officer of the court.
Right.
It's presumed to have been reviewed, to have been contemplated. And it, like you said, it is presumed by the judge that's sitting on the other end of the bench that this document is the God-given truth.
Well, and it's just like what Amy showed just 5 minutes ago, and that is the clerk of the court certified that there wasn't, she had never had any, objections to the billing and to the statements. And then, of course, the court gives 2 orders to 2 different banks to get the money. The whole thing is ridiculous.
I'm guessing, because I've been studying Amy's, and I saw that, and I was trying to figure out where that second case went to, because they're the same case number with an exception of 1 letter in between the 2. One went to one area, one went to the other. And my guess is not only do they have double entry bookkeeping, one going to the homeowner and one going to the treasury, but they also have a system of court records. Once an OCC complaint was filed, remember Amy said that?
Yes.
That the record going to the OCC was different from the record going to the homeowner. And Amy was wise enough and smart enough, and that's why I'm humbled, to spot it.
Oh my goodness. Well, so
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Not only are the accounting records going to 2 different, and they're different from the treasury and the one that the homeowner gets, but also the court record in Amy's case.
Right.
That's, where did the other one go? That's perfect for the OCC file. Okay, we did everything we're supposed to do. These servicers are sitting in the middle, playing both ends from the middle.
Yes.
I'm going to prove it, and that's why I had to start somewhere. So I started in Western Pennsylvania, Middle Pennsylvania, and Eastern Pennsylvania. And I filed with the United States Department of Justice, the head of each that jurisdiction.
Right.
Pretty much essentially the same complaint, along with a copy of what I just explained to you, to the Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania. And now I'm going to see the Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania on Saturday. Well, I won't see her Saturday, but I'll see her.
Were you invited, or are you doing this as an activist?
I was an activist. But
Good.
I'm also now a welcome activist.
Well, that's good.
Makes sense.
That's good. Because, the more we actually get facts to back up the positions, the more we're going to be paid attention to by the powers that be. I know that's true. They're not going to just be able to blow us off and say, oh, they just didn't want to pay the loan.
Exactly. We're not deadbeats. We have a problem here.
We have a major problem here, and I love the fact that now some of these media are actually saying that we need to get all the media saying the same thing, and we need to put this proof into a manner that could be easily digested. Because I'm telling you, all of us, me, you, Ronald, everybody watching that has been watching regularly and participates, we know a lot. And so someone comes on the show and says, blah, blah, blah. And we go, yes, right on. And everybody else that is just starting to get familiar with this topic goes, what? It's deer in the headlight time.
It is. Oh, can I tell you, everybody out there, I had never heard of, what do you call it, QWR, okay?
Right.
And I learned it from your show.
And truly, I've learned it from other people. I'm a real estate broker. What would I ever do a qualified written request for? Of course. And now, I actually recommend my clients, the sellers, the people that have borrowed, that still own property, I recommend that they send out a qualified written request right this minute. Because the facts are these. Now, as it becomes more and more plain that they're keeping at least 2 sets of books, now Ronald's intimating that it's 3 sets, it's probably 6 sets, and every department probably does their own thing, and no one is forcing that to make sense, to be connected. So they send information off here one way and information off there, and then we paint a picture to the homeowner, and so we keep everybody happy. And they can do that because they're playing in the center, and they're playing everybody else against each other.
And let me tell you, if you look at the last page that I sent you on the Stand 1, it's the schematic of their plan that they set forth in 1998. It's not an accident. This plan, it looks like a computer component.
Oh, this one.
How you would take a little disc and look at it and patent it with the Copyright Office. It's actually a schematic of what they set out to do, and they did it.
One note, many frauds, you called it. Here, I've pulled it up on the screen.
Well, I didn't call it that. There's a company that is looking at it also. I think their name's on there. I didn't, that's their copyright. And they've been on it since 2009.
Right.
But really pushed it. They've been educating people like me, people like CJ, people like Homeowners for Justice, and they're trying to go ahead and do the right thing. But that schematic is just something to put on the wall. I'd advise everybody. And just look at it every day and just say, well, where do I fit on this schematic?
Now, Ronald, is this something that we could get permission? I could put it on the Homeowners for Justice page?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We're just not allowed to use it commercially. We're not allowed to sell it, that's all.
Okay. Oh, okay. Perfect. Oh, my goodness.
Talking about commercial, that's making money off of something.
Right. And I just want people to see
As an educator, I'm allowed to teach you anything I want to teach you. You're just not allowed to go ahead and, put it in a book form and sell it to somebody. That's
right.
All. That's the only restriction. Because then you're not in commerce.
Right.
Education has no boundaries.
Well, and that's what Homeowners for Justice website is. It's basically for education.
No, it's an educational platform, and that's why I'm so proud of you. Oh. You are smarter than the average bear.
No, I'm not sure this was smart, Ronald.
I know. They have to wonder, huh?
Well, and the fact
Helping people.
Well, and the fact is, it just kills me to see and to hear, because I just get these emails constantly about people losing their homes, and I know there's fraud in it, and I know that they're not deadbeats. I know they were lied to say you have to stop your payments so that we can modify your loan, and then of course they get jerked around and foreclosed. I mean, it's just a complete scam, and it's real estate. So how can I stand by and not start doing something?
Well, you're doing more than most people, and I'm telling you, I learn something every single day, and that's why I don't miss your show, because maybe there's a lot of stuff that's a little boring because I've heard it before, but then there's that spark like Amy.
Exactly.
Wow. We're putting those connections together, and
exactly.
Renee puts one in there this morning. I haven't even had time to read, and I went, wow, it's getting wow, it's coming together, believe me.
Exactly. And truly, I apologize if a couple of times I'm a little late starting, and it's usually because at the last minute somebody sent me something that is truly fabulous and I just have to share it that day. So I'm trying to build this show like, 9:45 to 10 o'clock in the morning so that we can get it out. And like today's, it was just so good to have some of these videos. And please, let's send these links to everyone we know in conjunction with any other documents you've got that those media outlets could use to build their own story, their own case in whatever state you're in. Because of course that's in Georgia. So people here in California, even the media are going to go, oh, well, do we have something in California? So let's give them something. Let's give them something in Arizona. Give them something in Texas. Give them something in Florida. Give them something every state. Come on, guys. We can do this.
Well, I got something for you. I said, remember I said, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. It's about 100 pages. It was the Northern District, Federal Northern District.
Oh, yes. The pro per thing. Yeah.
For in pro se litigants.
Yes. And I actually have that linked on the website. I'm going to pull that up right now. It's,
okay.
Let's
I want
see.
everybody to get that because I want them to know something.
Okay.
Federal court is actually more strict and more complete than any state court across the country because they basically have the resources and the assets to put this and pull this stuff together. They have, the whole Treasury Department to do it. Our Northern District Court in California recognized a need that the pro se litigants needed a little bit of direction and help. And they passed this out last July for free. And it can be used in all 50 states because federal law applies to all 50 states equally.
Oh, you're right. You're right, because I was going to say, what about Southern Cal? What about other states? And then you're saying
this
federal.
Is just the Northern District did it. This is a procedure for the entire United States. Now, if you happen to be in Georgia, you would look up the local rules in yours because there's these little nuances,
Right, right.
A little nuance in New Hampshire, a little nuance in Vermont. But you've got 99% of it right there. All you do is just, where it says California, put the name of your state on there.
Right, right.
So that saves anyone. But the other states haven't the resources to do this.
That's right. Oh, that's great.
That's why it was so valuable. When I looked at it, it's a schematic of exactly where you are, where you can look in there and see where you're going and how you're going to get there.
Right, right.
And it's just a time saving. I was talking to Ken, and he said, wow, I'm here in Alameda County. I didn't know that this was published by my own court.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, San Francisco, Santa Cruz, where they're saying that there's a very high level of corruption.
Yes.
This is the court saying to you in pro se litigants,
right.
Yes, you can be a private attorney, general. Yes, you don't have to have permission from anyone to file a lis pendens in but they call it a notice of pendency.
Right.
And you don't have to have a judge's authority. You don't have to have an attorney's permission. And I sent those to you along in scan 1.
Right, right.
That's what I was trying to say.
Right.
So when you take it to the county recorder's office and you're protecting the title to your property, anyone there that refuses to take it, you put it down and put it in your police report because that's where we're going. We're going right down to the police station.
Right.
We need to have the allegation of fraud, and I just need one piece of paper from 1 million people showing fraud in their individual case.
Right. Which
bring in our police. We bring in our sheriffs because they have attorneys too,
Right.
And we bring in their investigators, and we get it all across the country from the bottom up.
Exactly. It's become.
Michael.
It's very obvious when the top level, the Department of Justice in the United States, will not do this prosecution. Then really the only other place is from the ground up. It's from the people.
What they pretty much indicated to me is they need a police report.
Right, right.
To get started. In other words, without not a police report, it's a civil matter.
Right.
That shocked me.
Yes.
They want a police report is more valuable because you have a case number than
That's right.
the letters that I sent to the United States Department of Justice.
Isn't that amazing? Okay, now I know Jack has filed a police report, and what I'd like is to have you, Jack, somebody come on, show us how to fill that out and how to file one. Let's make that public part of the public stream of consciousness that we're learning. To if it's that valuable, then let's find out how to do it, and let's have someone that's done it successfully share with us how to do that.
Exactly. Here's what I was told by federal law enforcement. A police report just moved this whole case from civil
Yes.
to criminal.
Yes. Yes.
The rules changed the moment.
Exactly.
Now that we're not having allegations of a civil dispute, we're talking about a criminal dispute. And the rules change.
You know what else, Ronald?
Changes. Doesn't it make sense?
Yes, and you know what else? I've been connecting more and more attorneys I've been become aware of them, foreclosure defense attorneys all over the country. And I just got an email this morning from an attorney, legal school. He teaches educational, and he wants me to chat after the show.
Good.
And,
well, I think maybe we're
and I think
as much as that guy yesterday from New York, okay, that called us
right
Irishmen with toasters 3 times. I think he was trying to elicit a response from me. We are not Irishmen with toasters. We are Irishmen with posters. On our poster it says, fraud, put the attorneys and the judges in prison.
Well, I think he was talking about the banks. You know, they were banks that
I'm
had
saying that
offices.
banks don't go to jail.
Yeah, I know.
People that sign the illegal instruments go to jail. And
Exactly.
You'll never see a Bank of America in a prison anywhere in America.
Exactly. And
It'll be
so
the officers and the directors and the attorneys for Bank of America that are going to wind up in jail.
what I think.
Point.
I agree, but we have to coordinate and organize to make that happen, because obviously, if there was any inclination on the part of our attorney generals and district attorneys and the Department of Justice, they'd already be in prison. So
Well, no. Kamala Harris, just 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago, a week ago, just allocated $1 million out of the California portion of the
settlement.
I think it was $34 billion settlement, or million. I keep getting those numbers mixed up. They're way over my head. $1 million, and they started a program here in California just for this purpose. I don't think $1 million is enough, but it's progress, and it's on her website. In fact, last week, it's on her website. I'll send it to you.
Perfect.
And now they're setting up a commission just to look into fraudulent documents. And I think you and your show, and people like, I want to say Renee, I don't want to say Terry, I don't want to say Ken, I don't want to say Tina, I don't want to say all the people there, may have had an impact.
Well, I should hope so.
On that.
I should hope
so. It's now real. There's $1 million allocated towards it.
Oh, that's great. Send me that link. Send me that link. I want to touch base.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, I thought you might have had it.
Not yet.
You have everything else.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh, that'd be great, Ronald. Thank you so much. Just really appreciate you coming on the show, showing us what you're doing, how this is working. The call goes out to our listeners. If you filed a police report, you know how to do it. You want to come on the show and explain it, please contact me. Let's get that done. Maybe we can make it short, put it on our update Friday. And if you're an attorney, if you're an activist, if you're a homeowner anywhere in the nation and you have been doing something, whether it's a lawsuit or an activism effort against a bank, whatever it is, please consider sharing with the country on our update Friday, this Friday. Give me a couple of days. Let me know as soon as you can, because truly everybody fighting, we can gain energy from each other on that. And we can learn. You share your experience, what works, what didn't work. And then others in other parts of the country can take that education back to their own homes. And the whole point is we want all 62 million. I think that's what you had in your letter, right, Ronald? 62 million mortgages.
I want it all back, and I want the people back in their homes.
Me too.
We're going to do it, but we need 1 million of us.
Yeah.
And you know what I didn't tell you? Is you have a whole group listening to you right now in New Jersey. I'm going to ask them to go ahead and start, getting on the email and talking to you. But they're all excited about you, and they're sitting out there, probably listening right now, and they're on it. They're really working hard in Atlantic City, and you'll be hearing from them. And they're going to the police departments.
Exactly. And Mary Ella, she was on Update Friday last week, and she sent me a little email, some updates. So I've asked her to share again on Friday, because truly, I totally think Charles Walshing is right, the attorney from New York. He says, "Oh, don't think these judges are corrupt." No, he doesn't believe that for a minute. What he thinks and what he knows from his own experience is that they are ignorant. They still think of the way it used to be. And this whole mess has just blown up and left them way behind. And they don't understand the legalities, what all the illegalities, what these people have done. And when you really think about it, the fact is they've had these banker attorneys standing in front of them in court all over the nation, lying to them, and lying and saying, yes, Wells Fargo owns the note, when it doesn't. And
here's what it is, CJ, here's the problem. Something happened from the last generation to this generation that we have right now. There was a time when I was a young man, 16, 17, 18, you could not get a lie out of an attorney's lips because they respected the profession so much.
Exactly. They were honest.
We see a moral decline.
Yes.
In the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, I have to agree.
That's what I see. I've witnessed. I'm 62.
Yep.
I just see a total moral decline.
Well, and it's since fraud is a business model, pretty quick, everybody, including all of our generations coming up behind us, they all learn that if you're going to get ahead, you got to cheat. Only liars win. And that's...
And on the test in school, just in Atlanta, they went ahead and arrested 43 teachers for...
conspiracy and lying and changing test scores. So I totally agree. And truly, it's basically because this is allowed to mushroom, allowed to continue. There isn't any lawsuit on it, and they're not criminal charges, and they're not put in prison. So that is the problem. Until we can get them going to prison on this, it's going to continue. That is the point. We have to do the criminal charges.
We're going to just try to do something here. I'm trying to do something here. I've asked everybody to sign my petition to put anyone that files a fraudulent, forged or intentionally altered document in jail for 6 months per offense. Now, under Rule 11, if they've already done it, they can go back and take it back off their record voluntarily. But if they don't want to take it off themselves, and I mean attorneys also,
right,
and they're allowing, because I'm looking at our records, our county recorder's office records across this country, our great country, and I'm looking at the court records across this great country as a national treasure.
Right.
It is a treasure. It is our information. It's for future generations to hold, and we want the lies out. And if they put them in. If they don't want to take them out, then they're going to go to jail for 6 months for every document they placed in there illegally.
I'd have to agree. I mean, we've got the penal code. Why can't we get it used? That's my question.
Let's move it. And that's all I have to say here today. And I just want to thank you for listening to me. I'm going to stay and watch your show, even though I'll be traveling.
Thanks, Ronald. Thanks.
And I love you. I do. And every one of you. And maybe there's days that I have a bad day and I get angry. It's happened in the past.
We're under a lot of stress.
Because I just saw some family get thrown out in the street, and I'm just mortified.
Just stressed out like crazy. I totally agree. I mean, I'm either fighting or crying, one or the other. So, thanks.
Then, sometimes, the only way to get past this is that I feel a good one coming on.
Yes. Thanks
my
for
age,
sharing.
believe me.
Thanks for sharing, Ronald. Good luck on your trip.
I'm talking about.
And with that, guys, we're going to have to sign off. We love our sign off song, and we'll see you tomorrow. Oops.
When I was a lass, I was proud of me class, like my father and mother before me.
They taught me to fight for my civil rights.
And it's always the same old story.
The rich reign supreme while the poor can but dream.
Under Labour or Liberal or Tory. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians. Bugger the bureaucrats too. Bugger the buggers who make up the rules. And if you're one of them, bugger you. And if you're one of them, bugger you.
The system is bent and the money's all spent. We're measured from every direction.
The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax. With nary a moment's reflection.
Where there's brass, there's muck.
And they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians. Bugger the bureaucrats too. Bugger the buggers who make up the rules. And if you're one of them, bugger you. And if you're one of them, bugger you.
Now all you good people with passion to vent, don't give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent.
By loitering within my tent. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians. Bugger the bureaucrats too. Bugger the buggers who make up the rules. And if you're one of them, bugger you. And if you're one of them, bugger you. Oh, bugger the bankers and politicians. Bugger the bureaucrats too. Bugger the buggers who make up the rules. And if you're one of them, bugger you. And if you're one of them, bugger you. And if you're